everywhere now. Where are they coming from? Hello, my dance friends, and welcome to my channel. Today I get to visit with my friend Grayson von Trapp. Grayson is a professional transnational fusion dancer based in North Texas. He's won several awards for his craftsmanship and his technique. He fuses a lot of North and West African dance, modern ballet, and contemporary, and all of his performances are super high intensity. They are just incredible to behold. He's got his own Patreon channel. He's always got workshops and classes going on. He performs all over the place, and recently he put out a very new research paper called Masculinity in American Bellydance, which is comprised of interviews from a small set of dancers within our community, specifically in the MENAHT or Middle Eastern North African Hellenistic Turkish range of folkloric dance or regional dance, often referred to as belly dance, really focusing in on the male and masculine identified dancers within this dance community. I got this paper and read it right away. It's a great start to a lot of research that's been needed for a while. So I'm excited to talk to Grayson about his process, his resources, and his findings. So without further ado, here's Grayson.
Oh,
thanks for chatting today. I'm super excited to visit with you about your recent publication. So the publication is called Masculinity in American Belly Dance, and you interviewed a handful of male-identified belly dancers within America to kind of get perspective on historical, cultural, and acknowledgement of this dancer within our community. You have a lot of other lectures that are based around gender identity or non-binary perspective that are super informative and really kind of clue a lot of people in who maybe don't have any perspective on that at all. So I'm excited to chat with you about basically your overall research and conclusions from this publication.
On that, I want to be kind of nitpicky about some of the language here, because yes, the paper is called Masculinity in American Belly Dance, and I did interview male-identified dancers as well as masculine-identified dancers. And the reason I phrased it that way and painstakingly typed that phrase 800,000 times in the paper, I wanted to really inculcate into the reader that it's not just men and it's not just male identified people, that it's also what I would call non-male identified individuals, or anything that's not cis male or, assigned male at birth still identifies as male. So there are trans men in here, there are gender variant individuals in the paper. And yes, as far as my other lectures, I do talk a lot about queer stuff and inclusivity, and the masculinity does intersect a lot with those other lecture topics.
Is this particular publication linked to your past research? Is this something that you've been wanting to talk about for a little while in kind of a publication format? Or is this something that just came about because you had been chatting with other belly dancers within the community and decided, yeah, I should tackle this topic?
It's kind of yes and no. No one really suggested that I research this. It was more of an idea of, I know going forward in school, it is my goal to finish through postgraduate. And I know that the goal of writing a dissertation is to contribute to the field, as opposed to just writing about something that's already been written about, which is more of what a master's thesis does. So I knew that I was going to have to find something that somebody else hasn't already written specifically about. And in talks with other dancers, starting with that little seed of, does this even sound like information anybody wants? Is it necessary? Does anybody care? I'm definitely not trying to make a men's rights argument or anything about it. I just wanted to as someone in this sphere and not having a lot of representation, is this something that's, viewed as necessary in the community? Originally, the project was a much broader scope. I had originally pitched it as a timeline of all men and masculine identified people in America in belly dance. That was my original topic. And I can see by your face I was a little ambitious. That was definitely, it's a year-long paper, a year-long project. Because it was a project through the school. I don't want to be too tangenty here, but it was not just like I wanted to do this for my own research and I did it independently. I got like a research grant and it was through a program through my university called the Experiential Learning Project. So that I had to pitch them what I wanted to do. And that was my original pitch. And my mentor was like, okay, so that's a lot. And you only have a year. And this is more of like a dissertation level topic, something that broad. So you need to narrow the scope. So I subtracted a lot from it. And that's how I ended up with sort of this very small timeline. It only deals in about the past 20 to 30 years and only in America and only, not exclusively in fusion belly dance, but almost exclusively in transnational fusion dance.
I am interested to know how you incorporated the dancers that you did into your interviews and research process.
I focused this project on American dancers as opposed to just men and masculine dancers in America, because there are definitely a lot of them. And from my understanding, there would have been a much different perspective on masculinity in belly dance from someone who's not native to the United States specifically. So I had, you know, like when you're looking through like web pages, when you're searching for something and you just apply more and more filters and your search term just gets more and more specific. That's kind of what I was doing with my dancers, because I did have like a post, like a call for dancers. If you check all these boxes, please email me, and if you want to be part of my project. So a lot of the dancers I actually knew personally. Most of them I'd say I either know personally or I've at least met them before, so I knew of them. And then there was maybe 2 or 3 that reached out to me from my call to action. And from there, the way I chose people was basically, if we could all get our ducks in a row and get an interview set up, then I would interview you, because I had no idea. I'd never written a paper like this before. I've never interviewed people, so I just was like, however many people I get. I wanted at least 10. I think I ended up with 8. Something that was interesting about that process, though, was I was worried about diversity, and I didn't want it to just look like, you know, a bunch of white guys on the cover of my paper. So I won't say that I like specifically reached out to people or didn't reach out to people based on their skin color, based on their like cultural background. It actually kind of did the work on its own. I ended up with a pretty even mix of like people of color to white people. So that was a relief to me, because I was definitely worried about it coming out the gate, just like all white guys. And I was like, that's also not what I wanted. The challenge is that there's just not many of us. So being picky about little things, and, you know, being like, okay, I want more of this and less of this. At the end of the day, like, I needed people. So I wasn't going to turn anyone away, but I definitely wanted as much diversity as I could get.
Do you see more dancers within our community of MENAHT, Raqs Sharqi, Bellydance, taking an interest in becoming more aware, not only of the masculine male-identified dancers, but also of the ever-evolving gender identity issues and terminology now than before you were first presenting your lectures?
I've gotten a lot of individual feedback from people. You know, like specific dancers will reach out to me and say that whatever it was that I had written or that they witnessed made a difference. And I think for a very small amount, for like, you know, those specific people, they are taking more of an interest and they are noticing that more. And I think also events are starting to incorporate that into their frame of like who they book. But I can't say I think it's had much of an appreciable difference on the community at large, being a small fish in a very strange pond of the American belly dance community. It just is kind of I feel like it's kind of in a downswing anyway, as far as the dance economy is going. So introducing something like this, I think it's just a hard sell. I do think that the other dancers who are male or masculine identified, they felt maybe validated, or they felt positively about being represented in the literature in this way. And I'm hoping that the long-term impact is that more male and masculine identified people don't feel like they can't pursue this dance style, either, because of worries about compromising on masculine identity, or, worrying about, being made fun of. So it's kind of, I feel like in that way, people like me dancing publicly and lecturing publicly kind of shifts the Overton window into what other people find acceptable. So when you have I don't want to say extremist, because I don't think this is extreme, but when you have an individual that is very vocal about something that people notice, it kind of lets less extreme or less radical versions of that kind of shift into the middle. So if me looking like this, writing this kind of stuff, talking about it, means that someone who is maybe quite not as feminine looking as me, but still wants to pursue this dance, gives them the confidence to give it a try, whereas before they never would have, then ultimately that is the effect that I would want.
Are there any references that you would want to cite for people that want a little more information on what you kind of touched upon in this paper particularly?
Yes, one book that I cited pretty heavily, it's a collection of essays written by mostly men, but various people. It's called When Men Dance, Choreographing Masculinities Across Borders. And I can't say I read the entire thing. I did kind of cherry pick essays from it, but there are a lot of great perspectives in there. It's obviously not going to be centric to belly dance. It's a lot of Western concert dance writers. So a lot of it is going to refer to like contemporary and ballet and modern, and maybe stuff that doesn't really intersect with like Raqs Sharqi and Transnational Fusion. But it touches on not just men in dance or masculine people in dance. There are essays about how it affects young boys dancing and having a dance community. Like there's one that I really like, is called "Is Dance a Men's Sport Too?" ? The performance of athletic coded masculinity on the concert stage. And all these essays are pretty short. They're like less than 30 pages. And the second thing that I'll recommend, and it's not a single thing, it's an author. His name is Dr. Anthony Shea, and he has done a lot of writing specifically on MENAHT dance and men in MENAHT dance. It's not all what we would kind of see or understand as belly dance or Raqs Sharqi. There's like some stuff about Iranian dance and Uzbekistan. So it may not be a lot of what we recognize, but the issues that it tackles and the perspectives are all still relevant to what we would call belly dance or MENAHT, Raqs Sharqi, Transnational Fusion. Anthony Shea, and his last name S-H-A-Y. He has tons of books, and they're all pretty spot on, and they're not super heavy academic language. Sometimes some of these books and essays can be written like only for people who have like doctoral degrees, and I have dictionary.com open for every other sentence. His writing is a little more accessible.
Thanks so much for hanging out today, Grayson. It was great seeing you. I'm really excited for this research and what it's doing for the community.
Bye.
That's it, guys. I'll be linking all of Grayson's information below so that you can check out any upcoming performances, classes, workshops, as well as how to get your hands on that research paper if you'd like to read it for yourself. If you like this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to make more videos like this for you. This week's Patreon shout out is to Sharon Carrillo from right here in Texas. Thanks for joining me today, guys. Mom. What else? I think that's all I need to say.